And the title of my thesis is Optimization of Dynamical Systems Towards Criticality and Intelligent Behavior. And the title, like in this slide, we can see a dynamical system that is Cohen's game of life. So how should AI or artificial intelligence or AI systems be? AI is a program in the computer that you give some information, is processed by them, and it gives you the information that you want, that you desire, or a behavior that you want that system to have. So, but they should have, they should be like static, like this concrete bridge, or dynamical, like this bridge made by ends. What do you think? In the concrete bridge is going to do the same task, carrying people and cars to a point A to B, crossing a river, for example. But with the ends, they can build the bridges. This bridge can recover, repair. They can make larger bridges, smaller, doing also stairs, a raft, and a colony of ends. They can together they can do much more and be adaptive, and have several things to do. Not in the static one, like grid bridge, just do one thing, while the ends together, they do lots of things together while repairing. So what would you prefer your AI to be, and needs to be intelligent? So for me, it would be the ends, more dynamical AI system. That's what I'm trying in this thesis. This is what my research was about. And when I asked DALL-E, it's AI system for generating or editing images from text prompts. And I just gave that image of a concrete bridge, and I just say, DALL-E, draw me a bridge made of ants. I thought to create a bridge made of ants from this image, but we got just an ant praising that bridge. So it doesn't have too much understanding of the word. It's just trying, just learn to do images from text, and this is what we get. And yes, it doesn't have a general understanding of the word. So introducing what we have for our my research, we use complex dynamical systems, and they are made of many simple components. And these components have a local interaction between themselves. And they have two properties, that is self-organization and emergence. And they are also biologically plausible. And the substrates that we use in our research was cell automata, the one that we're seeing in the top, that is Cohen's game of life, a type of cell automata. In 2D, we have random Boolean networks as a type of substrate. We see the animation in the bottom, this network with random connections and binary states. And we have also as well randomly connected neural networks, very similar to the random Boolean networks, but instead of having these logic rules from the Boolean networks, we have perception like artificial neurons and spiky neurons as well that we are going to I'm going to explain later. So yes, the motivation for my research, I wanted to have like applied dynamical systems for AI because they have some properties like adaptability, robustness, and they resemble in dynamics, resemble biological intelligence. Our brain is a dynamical system, many components, simple ones, the neurons connected with themselves and doing complex things when they're working together. And the ultimate goal is to have artificial general intelligence, or AGI, and this one is capable to learn several tasks without forgetting. They also have reasoning capability, and it's a type of artificial intelligence that is closer to human intelligence, and maybe can surpass if it reaches this level. But here we have a background. As I say, I'm going to explain a bit artificial neurons and spiky neurons. So this is the artificial neural network model of artificial neuron is called perceptron, and here we have our image. A perceptron is just a weighted sum. We have our input x, our weight w. We multiply them together, and sum after multiplying everything. And then this weighted sum is applied to our activation function that is normally nonlinear. That is our f. And when we apply this weighted sum to activation function, we have our y. That is the result of the perceptron. And when we put this perceptron in series and in parallel, we have, for example, a multi-layer perceptron or artificial neural network that we can give data to this network and can be processed to give a prediction, a classification, and work as we know as like what AI do. We have like the data that we wanted as the output of the AI. Okay, this is how artificial neural network works. And the cell automata, I'm giving kind of a background because we need to understand them for the next things that I'm going to show next. And this is the cell automata. Here we have the CA rule for the rule 110 of this one-dimensional cell automata that has three neighbors. You can see that the first, in the top part, we have three neighbors, like a sliding window in orange, getting like the region of the neighborhood, and checking what's going to be the next state of the center cell. That is in the middle part, and checking with this rule, checking if the three neighbors or these three cells, what is the pattern that it forms. It changes the center cell. In the bottom, we have what it comes out of it. Yeah. And the result of this CA comes to this. This is rule 110, run from like 30 timestamps. So you see the time from top to bottom. So yes, research questions. I presented to you background, artificial neural network, and cell automata. Research questions have a bit of these. And my first research question is, how can dynamical systems be optimized towards criticality? We have a type of criticality that is like, it's like with tuning parameter. It's like a temperature. If it's too low, it's going to be kind of ice. It's going to be static or fixed, as we see here with this lambda parameter. If we increase a little bit, maybe it gets a bit more dynamic, but it gets still cyclic, kind of fixed, but it repeats in the same state. And if we increase this too much, this parameter of temperature, it gets too chaotic, that when the lambda is too high. But there is a certain point between static, between order and disorder, that we have complex patterns emerging. That is kind of being at the vicinity of the phase transition or being at the edge of chaos. And we have a second type of criticality that's called self-organized criticality that presents a polynomial distribution of avalanches. And here we have a video of the sand pile model that represented this type of criticality. Here are sand rays going from to this bottom part, kind of the floor. And when the sand rays, the sand grains, they can stack up to 4. When they reach 4 sand rays, one on top of the other, it transmits all these 4 sand rays to the sides, to top, bottom, left, and right. All these 4 corners. And when this happens, this is avalanche of size 1, but some of these can trigger more avalanches. One avalanche can trigger more and increases the size, and we verify the size. And the distribution of these avalanches, checking the size of the avalanche and the occurrence of them, we have power law distribution that when we have horizontal axis and vertical axis in log scale, we have this linear function, or similarly to a linear function in a descending manner. And the blue box show the function of it. As you see, the avalanches, the video, like the triggering, one triggering the other. So yes, this is self-organized criticality. And criticality is found in brains, in neural avalanches. Here in the left side, we have the big electrode arrays. We grow a culture of neurons on top, and there are some electrodes. There are these circles that reads the dynamics of this neural network. And we can see in the middle the neuronal culture activity that forms this pattern. These are the moments that the neurons spike. And when we verify the avalanche that they form, we have a power law distribution. And criticality as well is useful in reservoir computing. Reservoir computing is a machine learning paradigm that we have a reservoir. It's a randomly connected neural network. We do not, all the weights are randomly initialized. We do not train them. The only thing that we train is a linear output layer, or just a layer of neurons. And we just read the states of the reservoir. And from that, we get computation. The computation is only performed by the reservoir. We only need to train the output layer. And the reservoir, to be useful, needs to be, it's referred to be in criticality, where computation is more powerful because it's inferred that it has, it can process, transmit, and memorize information better when it's in criticality. Research question number 2 is, how can dynamical system be optimized to present adaptable and intelligent behavior? Here we have this video of the fossil dynamics trying to be adaptable to this path full of rocks. So yes, research question 2 is related to adaptability and intelligence. Research question 3, are there benefits of using self-organizing dynamical systems in artificial intelligence? If so, what are they? Here we have examples of self-organizing systems. We have these ferrite neurons trying to connect with each other, and we have also a flock of birds. They are a dynamical system that has this self-organization property. And we'd like to have AI having these properties too. Here is the research overview. The research is divided in 3 parts. The first part is called aerodynamic, general representation of dynamical systems and their evolution towards criticality. It addresses the research question 1, that's related to criticality. Part 2, evolution low-level artificial general intelligence, that addresses research question 2 and 3, that's related to adaptability, intelligence, and self-organization. And part 3, neurocell automata for control tasks, that addresses research question 2 and 3, related to adaptability, intelligence, and self-organization. So part 1 about aerodynamic. Aerodynamic is a Python library that you can download and install, and is used for evolving dynamical systems. So this is kind of an overview. So we have the framework, aerodynamic, is implemented in Python, and we use 2 packages of Python, that is NumPy and TensorFlow. NumPy is responsible for implementing the genetic algorithms, and TensorFlow for implementing the dynamical systems. We use TensorFlow, that is a famous and popular deep learning framework, so we can simulate those dynamical systems in GPU and maybe get advantage of the parallelization that it offers. So the dynamical systems that we implement that can be evolved with genetic algorithms are cell automata, random Boolean networks, equistate networks, and naive-state machines. These last 2, the equistate networks, are randomly connected networks, neural networks with perceptron or similar to perceptron. And naive-state machines is with spiking neural networks that I'm going to explain later. Related to, since I mentioned genetic algorithms, what is a genetic algorithm? So a genetic algorithm starts with a population of solutions. We evaluate those solutions. If there is not finishing, like in termination, because it's our first cycle, we select the ones that were better performed. Or we have a kind of strategy for selection, the individuals that were evaluated in this population. And we select them, and we allow them to reproduce. Reproducing is performed with crossover mutation. You can see like those A and B solutions with 3 genes that are integers, and they have this crossover, and they take parts of each genome, and then we have a mutation as well after that changes one of the genes. And this was reproduction. We apply this to have a new population, and this new population is evaluated again. We do this cycle over and over until reaching a termination that can be number of cycles or generations, or when it reaches a good value of the fitness. So it's evaluated with a fitness function. And we use this genetic algorithm for making stochastic CA into criticality. And stochastic CA is very similar to the CA that I shown with 3 neighbors and changing the center cell, but this time the center cell has a probability to change to state 1 or black. And here's how we define avalanche. At the avalanche, we get a cluster of state 1 of black. With our size is the cells that were affected in this avalanche, the duration, how many times this avalanche occurred, and we have area that we count the amount of cells that we have in this avalanche. And with this, defining as the avalanche, our goal is to have a function that creates a Poisson law of distribution of this avalanche. And that changes that they are going to change just the probabilities that each of these 8 patterns with 3 neighbors are going to have. And this is the result. This is the stochastic CA after training in the genetic algorithm. And we have all these 3 distributions for size, duration, and area. And we get a Poisson law. And these are in the table are the probabilities depending on the neighborhood pattern and the probability of the center cell becoming 1. And we also test the robustness of the critical stochastic CA. We check how it's going to be if we apply some noise into the critical CA. Is it going to maintain the criticality? And also we perceive that our brains also have lots of noise, and it also has some noise in the stochasticity of it. So we kind of compare about that. So in the first row, we have our stochastic CA that we got. There is no noise. The sigma is equals to 0. In the middle row, in the second row, we have a noise of 1.0. We can see that it changes a bit how the stochastic CA performs. It has avalanches that are much smaller. That's why we reset. That's why we have a cut in the middle. We reset the states. And we have still some parallel distributions for size, duration, and area. And then in the last row, we have a noise of sigma equals to 2. And we see kind of it affects the stochastic CA, the appearance of it, but the distribution is kind of maintaining the parallel distribution, but it changes a bit how it was without any noise. And here is statistics of adding noise. Here in the horizontal axis, we have noise from 0 to 1,000, the sigma. The first, the one on the left is related to the slope that the Poisson law creates, is the alpha hat. And in the beginning, until sigma equals to 2, we have kind of, it maintains the alpha, the slope, kind of very stable. But then after 2, it gets reduced strongly. And two-fiber divergence is the comparison between the avalanche distribution, the empirical data with the theoretical data. And we get in the beginning up to sigma equals to 2. It maintains a similarity with the empirical or with the theoretical Poisson law. But after that, it decreases a bit. So yes, after sigma equals to 2, it doesn't maintain the criticality or the features that it was before. So yes, part 1, main contributions. We create Evodynamic, that is a deep learning library used to simulate several dynamical systems. We have a genetic algorithm and a proper function that leads the system towards criticality. And we also preserve criticality, we study preservation of criticality in noisy conditions, and it can indicate the presence of intelligence in artificial systems, as it happens in the brain with neuronal stochastic variability. So we go to part 2. It's neuroevolution of low-level artificial general intelligence. The method of low-level AGI is the usage of a method called neuroevolution of augmenting topologies, or short-term NEAT, to evolve a spiking neural network, or SNN, with low-level AGI. This method is called neuroevolution of artificial general intelligence, or NAGI. And low-level AGI stands for the ability to adapt to new tasks, environments, and datasets from sensory feedback. And the environment needs to be dynamic, so the sensory feedback has some meaning. So in NAGI, spiking neural network is evolved, but the connection strength or the weights are not inherited like the original need. We are going to randomly initialize the weights, and to substitute the weights that we no longer have, we have the synaptic plasticity of each neuron. And the no inheritance of the weights is to have a spike neural network without any behavior or knowledge of the previous generation. So we have a background about spiking neurons because we evolved a spike neural network. And here we use the model leaky, integrate, and fire. In the left side, we have a spiking neuron, receives spikes. Spikes are like a binary string in continuous time. Each is having like lots of zeros and ones. And when there is a spike, we have a 1. When there is no spike, it's a 0, arriving to the spikes or to the spiking neuron. And this spiking neuron also produces other spikes. That's going to be communicated to the next neurons in front. So how this spiking neuron decides when to also create spikes or to generate actual potential. So on the right side, we have the first input spike. We have the horizontal axis from left to right. This is the time. The first one arrives and increases this neuron state for amount of related to the W, that is the weight of that connection. And after a while, after not receiving any spike, it decays exponentially towards the resting potential. That is what normally remains. And we have more spikes and spikes coming that compensates this exponential decay that increases this neuron state. It can also decrease with inhibitory spikes. Instead of increasing, like the neuron state that we are seeing now, it can also decrease. But increasing the neuron state to a certain point, to a threshold value, and then an output spike is generated. And then the neuron state is resetted to generate another output spike again. And here is how a spiking neuron works. And we use a type of plasticity that's called spike time independent plasticity, or STDP. STDP is a plasticity rule which modifies the weight of a neuron connection. And STDP takes the spike time of the presynaptic neuron and the postsynaptic neuron to define the weight change. We have a neuron that is the presynaptic neuron connecting, having a direction or a connection with direction from the presynaptic neuron to the postsynaptic neuron. We have a direct connection. And here we have times of the spikes with the red line and the green line. In this case, we have the pre-synaptic spike coming before the post. Since we have pre having a connection to the post, there is kind of sequence, and likely that the pre-synaptic spike was the cause to the postsynaptic neuron to fire. That's why we have a causality in this case. And with this, when we check the difference in the time of the spike, we have an increase in the W, in the weight of that connection, the delta W. And here is when pre comes before the post, but when it comes the opposite, when the post comes first and then the presynaptic neuron spikes, we don't have a causality because the pre connects to post and not the opposite. So when the post fires first and then the pre, it was, we can check there was no kind of causality of because there is a direction. So it reduces that connection. You can see that the delta W goes to the negative area when it's post before pre. And we have different types of STP rules in the Nagy method. And the one that we saw was asymmetric Hebbian. When the pre comes before the post, we increase the weight, but when it's the opposite, it increases. The asymmetric anti-Hebbian does the opposite. When there is a pre before the post, it reduces the weight, but when the opposite occurs, it increases. And we have as well symmetric Hebbian and symmetric anti-Hebbian. The symmetric Hebbian is a good case of the Hebbian theory that's, in short, says neurons that fire together wire together. You can see that when the two neurons are very close in spike time, the weight increases in the symmetric Hebbian. And the symmetric anti-Hebbian does the opposite. Here is the genotype and phenotype in Nagy. The node genes have now the information about the SDP parameters and the types. We can see the node genes. We have input nodes that are 0, 1, and 2. We have a node that is the output, that's node number 3, and node 4, that is our hidden node. And we have also the SDP type and parameters. We can see that we have a symmetric Hebbian for node 3 and symmetric Hebbian for node 4. We have the parameters that are going to adjust the height and the curvature of the SDP curves. We also have a bias that is mistakenly false in these two neurons, 3 and 4. This is like a current that is always going to increase the membrane potential on the neural state of each spike constantly. And we also have inhibitory for node number 4. That's why it's colored red. When it's excitatory, it's colored blue. And we have also connection genes. Just a minute. Nodes can be excitatory or inhibitory. The bias gives a constant current to the spiking neuron. And the connections genes no longer have the weights. The weights are randomly initialized. So the connection genes just indicates the presynaptic neuron and the postsynaptic neuron. So the origin and destination. Here in the first connection gene, we have origin equals to 0 and destination equals to 3. We have that connection. And we say that there is a part in the gene that's called enable, and this involved one is related to the method need. And we have a second connection gene that is origin to 1, destination equals to 3. This is disabled. We cannot see in the phenotype. So it's like our DNA that are some genes that are not expressing in the phenotype. And since this is meant to be in a reactive environment, in a dynamic environment, when you not have that, we create this reaction. We create the environment that is dynamic. For example, image classification, we do not have a dynamic environment. It just says if the photo or the image is a cat or a dog, and there is no change of the image when it just classifies it. So to make it like image classification and type classification, like reactive or dynamic, we have when the agent with a self-running controller acts and gives action, we check if the action was correct or not. If it's correct, we send a reward to the sensor. It's like an actual input, sensor input to the agent. It's like giving a cookie or a treat to your dog. And when the action is incorrect, it receives a penalty. There is a high firing rate of that input neuron. It's like giving a no to your dog or something like that. Okay? And this is kind of creating a reaction in a non-reactive environment. And to test NAGI, we want to have it that it passes through like a rough adaptation during the lifetime. We want that it can adapt to a rough change in the environment. So in the first environment, here is to select if the food is eatable or not. We have a data, black and white, black and white. And in the first environment, the white food is the one that should be eaten, and the black one should be avoided. But after a few time steps, it changes completely. Now the black wants to be eaten, and the white wants to be avoided. And then after a few data samples, the environment changes completely and goes to all of the 2 types of food is going to be eatable. And after a few times in the fourth environment, none of the food are going to be eatable. And we test that to see if the agent can be adaptable to these changes. And instead of having 2 types of food, we test this type of mutable environment with logic gates. So we train our spiking neural network with plasticity, with these logic gates that are in the top table, that are A, B, not A, not B, only 0, only 1, XOR, and XOR. And we test in logic gates that were not seen during the training or during evolution, that are AND, NAND, OR, and OR. These are our environments for the agent. And during evolution, it finds out this neural network that has input A is equals to neurons 0 and 1. We use one-hot encoding for this case because it's all binary values, but we use 2 neurons just to facilitate to the neural network. So one-hot encoding, when we have 0, we have one-hot as 0 and 1, or low firing rate and high firing rate. When we have the binary value 1, we have one-hot 1, 0. And the first neuron is going to be high firing rate, and the second neuron is going to be low firing rate. So input B is going to be neurons 2 and 3. Reward is going to be neuron 4. When the agent does something correct, neuron 4 is going to be having a firing rate, high firing rate. When it's a penalty of it's performing wrong, it's going to be a high firing rate in the number 5. This is the neural network. And here is how this neural network performs. The red region in the background is where it was wrong. Here we have in the vertical axis, we have the number of spikes for the actuator to give 0 and the actuator to give 1. 0 is green. We can see a bit of green in the left side, but it normally just changes the spike number between 12 and 13. If it's zoom in, we are going to check there is some kind of changes that identifies, yes, it's making the correct prediction for the logic gate. So in the bottom, we see the table. First, we have the first environment, that is the NOR gate, and then we have OR, AND, and then it just repeats. For every agent run, we always scramble, shuffle the order of the logic gates and the order of the input samples. And yes. And for the main contributions of the second part, we have a successful adaptive weight agnostic neural network. Weight agnostic because we initialized randomly the weights. It doesn't matter how the weights are going to be initialized. We have learning with reactions from the environment, and we have all the environments that are the food foraging and the carpool. Part 3, we have a neural cell automata for control tasks. And the motivation for the neural cell automata for control is that instead of, this is a cell automata, but instead of having that rule like in a table, we have artificial neural network being the rule of the CA, of the cell automata. So we have a step T of our CA. It passes to, in this case, we have a 3x3 that changes the center cell, goes to the artificial neural network, it updates, it gives kind of an update of every cell and sums together with the previous time step to create the time step that is in the next step T+1, depending on the update masking. And with the growing neural CA, it can produce from a single cell that we see in the right side, from a black pixel, it can produce an image. In this case, it's a neuron. But instead of just producing an image from one single cell, we would like to have this neuron to be dynamic, to control not just a static image, but being a functional neuron, to be a neuron that transmits information from the dendrites and goes to the axon and so on. This was the idea, not just being a generator of an image, but actually giving control to a robot or something. So we have a neural CA to control our carpool agent. In the top left, we have all the 4 inputs of the carpool environment that are cart position, cart velocity, pole angle, velocity. They are duplicated, and it forms these 8 inputs that are surrounding the center. And in the center are the 2 actions of the carpool that are left and right. And this self-organized system, it can control the carpool that you can see now. In the bottom left is the hidden channels that these neural cell automata has. And in the top right is related to the expected reward, because this one was trained with reinforcement learning, a method called deep Q learning. And yes, the pole was well balanced with this controlling the cart. And we have another method that's using NeuroCA to develop and control a modular robot. So we have a developmental phase of this modular robot. We start from a single cell, and it grows slowly to a full-grown robot, or a modular robot that has 3 body parts that are the tissue, that are these blue squares, or light sensors that are the blue squares with a light sensor in the like a red dot, and the wheel. The wheel is a wheel that is in vertical orientation that goes forwards and backwards. And when finishing the developmental phase, we deploy to an environment. And the goal of this robot is to chase a light source. And we have some activity to control this robot. And the same neural cell automata that was used for the developmental phase is the same for the control phase. And here in the bottom is the architecture of this neural cell automata. Here is the video. We can see that the body is the only one that is the single cell that starts, and it grows slowly. This is the developmental phase. And then it finishes and deploys a robot that was developed to control that. Now the body parts, the channels related to the body parts are static, that are the body. Control flag is just to indicate if it's in the developmental phase or control phase. The tissue, that is to indicate when the tissue is located. a sensor when the sensor is located and the actuator where the actuators are located. And the ones that have the highest value is going to be the body part that it has. And the last channel that is input and output, where the sensors are going to have its values sent to that cell, and where is located the actuators is going to actuate the wheels. If it's positive, it's going to be forward. If it's negative, it's going to be reverse. And we have another one with cell automata, but in this case, we use voxel-based soft robots, or VSRs. And the voxel properties are, they are soft, they can contract and expand. These colors of these voxels, they are related to the area of the voxel when they are expanding and contracting. They sense the environment. They have touch sensors. They have kind of types of lidars, so on. And they have local communication. They can communicate. Each voxel can communicate with its neighbors. And we have two types of control of these modular robots. That is neurocell automata, and another type of neurocell automata that's with spiking neurons. And we have some types of neurocell automata applied in these voxel-based soft robots. Here we have the square, with each voxel controlled by a neural network. In the non-uniform directional, we have different neural networks for each voxel, and they are directional, so the communication is different for each direction, that are top, bottom, left, and right. Uniform and direction in the middle, they have the same neural network for every voxel, for every module in the robot, but they have a direction, so it matters the communication to the top, bottom, left, and right. And uniform and non-directional, that's closer to what we have in neurocell automata, that every cell has, or every voxel has the same neural network, and the communication doesn't matter the direction. The same information goes to all the neighbors that are top, bottom, left, and right. And these are the results of the evolved NCA for the voxel soft robots. In the first column, we have the spiking neurocell automata using uniform and non-directional. The second column is with NCA with uniform and directional. And the last column, the third one, is with NCA that are non-uniform and directional. With the spiking neurocell automata, it performs very good for the biped and comb. Even in terrains that are not flat, that are rough, it adapts pretty well. We tested that, but the spiking neural network does not perform well to the body shape of worm because it doesn't get a high frequency as the NCA. But yes, these are the results. And part three main contributions are, we have an RCA that is successful to control the carpal task while being robust to noise and damages in the CA states. We can damage the CA of the, we can damage the state of the CA that controls the carpal, and you can still maintain it, the pole balance. We have a single neurocell automata performing the developmental of the body of a model robot, and you can also control it. And we have a spiking neurocell SCA that is more adapted to unseen terrains and controlling a voxel-based soft robot. So conclusion for the first research question, how can dynamical systems be optimized towards criticality? We use genetic algorithms with a certain proper fitness function that guides the system towards parallel distribution of avalanches. Then criticality, this is the example with the stochastic CA. Conclusion 2, how can dynamical systems be optimized to represent adaptable and intelligent behavior? So we have applied genetic algorithms and reinforcement learning. Can be applied for spiking neural networks that are adaptable and neurocell automata to be able to maintain the performance in unforeseen conditions. And research question 3, are there benefits of using self-organizing dynamical systems in artificial intelligence? If so, what are they? And we we listed here that is adaptability. It can develop and have a developmental capacity using the neurocell automata. It can regenerate, and regeneration we can see here the carpal. Here we are going to apply some noises. You can see that we have a circle that apply random noise, and the NRCA can recover that damage and still maintain the carpal still running. And also the same example, it can robust to noise. You can apply noise to it. Developmental changes like NAGI and misinformation. We also studied this same method removing some inputs. And some of the cases, it can maintain the pole being balanced, the control being good enough. And here, all our research, we have made it all open source, aerodynamic, NAGI, self-organized control, neurocellular robot substrate, and the Spike NCA for voxel base of robots. And here's the acknowledgement. I'd like to thank all the institutions, my supervisor, co-supervisors, everyone, all my colleagues, co-authors. It was a nice time, and thank you very much for your attention.